I want to shout out a handful of people. We got this story from Timcast.com. Comedian Jim Breuer cancels shows at theaters demanding proof of vaccination. The Saturday Night Live star Jim Breuer canceled his concerts, he's a comedian, at venues across the U.S. that require proof of vaccination before entry, becoming the latest celebrity to protest vaccine passports in cities like New York. Two quick updates on shows that you may think you may be getting tickets to or already have tickets to. The Wellmont Theater in New Jersey, not doing it. Also, the Royal Oak Theater in Michigan, due to the segregation of them forcing people to show up with vaccinations, I am also not doing those shows. Added the 54-year-old comic. I know I'm going to sacrifice a lot of money, but I'm not going to be enslaved to the system or money.
Good.
There's a lot of comedians that won't do that. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of performers who won't do that. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people who are just absolutely marching in line with these mandates because, well, there's money to be made. So let's talk about bravery. So you were just mentioning that, people call you brave. I think what he's doing is brave. Yeah. And we'll talk about some of these other comedians in a second. But you were saying like, oh, come on, I just talk online and stuff, right? Let's be real, though. In the event that you get canceled, meaning like your bank shuts you down, like hardcore, like they've done to some of these people, are you going to be able to get a job at a regular place?
Wouldn't want one. But yeah, actually, yes, I would.
You think you'd be able to?
Yes, I do.
I mean,
I'm a very competent person.
But it's not about competence. It's about being a pariah. It's about them being like, look, I'm a fan, but we can't deal with the harassment. Antifa would show up. And
see, this is further cowardice. It's cowardice at every level. It's cowardice at the employer level. It's cowardice at the employee level.
I agree.
This is the thing. So I've said before that cancel culture only works in coordination with cowardice culture.
Yes.
Yep.
Right. If people were a bit more bold and brave and willing to stand up for themselves and stand by their coworkers, their colleagues, their employees, you're a business owner.
Right.
You have people who work for you. Right. So if one of your employees, if people started messaging you saying, oh, this guy who works for I don't like his tweet or whatever, you'll be like, you probably won't respond. But at best you'll be like, what? You'll stand by your person, and then they're impotent. They can't do anything else. It's like, okay.
I would say it's not so simple. Most people might assume like, oh, we're here, great defenders that would never falter in the face of cancel culture. I mean, let's be real though. Like, you can't go on Tucker Carlson's show and say a bunch of swears and racist things. I use him as an example because he's like the biggest show.
Sure.
He's mainstream, but he's also fairly counterculture.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely, there are things that employees at my company could do that I'd be like, get out.
Yeah, of course.
But not these BS microaggressions. None of this.
This is what I'm saying, right? I don't think anyone. So the term cancel culture sort of gets misused a lot. Cancel culture doesn't mean that anyone should be able to do anything and there's never any repercussions.
Right.
Right. No, that's not how society works. If someone goes on some huge like white supremacist racist rant or something, right, and then they get fired, that's not cancel culture. Okay, but cancel culture is, oh, this person tweeted something in 2011 and we've dug it up. Oh, he was 14 when he tweeted it, and now we're gonna like come after him, and people actually cave to that. Or someone does something which is not even a transgression to any remotely normal and reasonable person, and then there, a handful of Twitter people go after them or whatever, and people start caving. So there's certainly levels to it.
But so the reason I bring up the job thing, like, okay, do you think you get a regular job? I think that I've already seen it. We've already seen with many people getting fired over fear of, like, oh, someone, you got canceled, you were tweeting things, you lose your job. So there are a lot of people that are afraid to be public figures in that regard.
Sure.
Like, if I speak up, I could lose my job. And so there is, to a certain degree, bravery in being willing to be a forward-facing political figure.
Sure.
I will never get offered another job in establishment media.
Sure.
I worked for Vice. I worked for ABC News Univision. After that company, I got basically courted by a bunch of the New York media establishment, and I ultimately decided to do my own thing.
Yep.
That will never happen again.
Yeah.
Because of the things I've covered, because of the things I've said. I actually had a conversation with one of these high-profile guys a few years ago after I had been running my YouTube channel for a little bit. And I saw him at the airport on the way to Davos, of all places. And he said to me, I'm not sure which side you're on.
Yeah.
And I said, telling the truth? And then I asked him, I was like, why won't you call out? I pulled up a specific story that was lies about Trump. And I was like, why don't you guys correct this stuff? Why don't you guys ever call out your colleagues in media? How come you just let it slide? So if you're willing to stand up and say, I'm going to lose money because I care more about my convictions, my principles, and believing this stuff, there's a certain bravery to it.
Yeah.
But I will just say also, there's also for me at least, I can't say the same thing for you. Maybe you would agree. There's like kind of an obstinate personality trait where I'm just like, you're not going to tell me.
Contrary.
It's America.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily contrarian. It's like, if
You just did it. You should have said that.
Yeah,
You just
yeah.
were
It's a
contrarian.
level.
That was
It's a
funny.
level
but
of
I'm saying
disagreeableness.
it's not
Yes.
it's not about being contrarian. Like contrarian in the sense where it's just like, if you say something, I'll disagree with you.
Yeah.
If you're in the majority, I'll disagree. No.
You just have a disagreeable personality.
No.
on
I'm
the,
I'm
personality
saying if I
on
believe
Jordan's.
it, I believe it, I'm going to stand by it.
Yeah.
If I change my opinion on it, I'll explain I changed my opinion on it. But if everyone in the country all of a sudden one day starts saying vaccine mandates, and I'm like, I disagree. I don't care what the ramifications are. I'm not going to just pretend to agree with it.
Yeah.
One day in the future, you should rewatch this show, and when we're all telling you how disagreeable you are, and you're telling us I'm not disagreeing with us, it'll be funny to
Yeah.
you. Then.
Yeah, but that's
Ironic.
that's like a.
It's a good trait for a lot of people. Disagreeableness is a powerful trait.
I know, but
necessary.
that's not the point I'm making.
It's the principle.
Like the point I'm making is that I can agree with if someone comes in and they're like, I think everyone should have guns. I'll be like, I agree.
Yeah.
2 years ago I didn't agree, but I changed my opinion after being
convicted. Maybe
informed.
you have conviction.
Yeah.
Right. The point is there are a lot of people who are perhaps agreeable or disagreeable. The point is it's not about being disagreeable. Like, I'm not going to argue with you for the sake of arguing because I don't like you. That's tribalism, where they're just like, Biden should win because Trump is bad. I'm like, no, Biden should win if Biden's got good policies, but Biden was
I
sleeping on
think
the job.
when he's saying disagreeableness, he means like specifically as like the big five personality.
Yes.
traits.
Yes.
Yeah. Jordan
You're-
Peterson.
No, I know.
Okay, yeah. So like just being able to stick up for yourself and being willing not to just always go with the herd. Because this is the thing, like human beings, we are individuals, and I think society sort of feeds us this line in the West that everyone's really, really individual and unique and special. But the truth is, we're also herd animals, and the majority of people always want to be in the majority. You are going back and talking about, would somebody have fought against slavery or fought against the Nazis, etc. The reason why those things were so difficult is because most people want to be in the majority. To go against the majority on anything is potentially risky and scary. And you can understand that because we're hardwired to be in tribes. So risking any form of social ostracization could have been deadly in the past. Now it's not so much deadly, but there's still potential real repercussions of that. And it's that people fear. It's not that they are afraid to speak in itself. It's just simply that concern. What are other people going to think?
Right.
Let's talk about these comedians.
Okay.
So, I highlight Jim Brewer, and he's fantastic. He's had very anti-woke bits. I think it was Jim Brewer had this bit about his daughter going to college
Yeah,
and
that
coming
was
back
Jim,
and
yeah.
hating
Oh,
him.
yeah.
He's great.
Patriarchy.
Yes.
White
He's
rage.
awesome.
It's hilarious.
Well, so he's like, I'm not going to do the shows.
Yeah.
Patton Oswalt
Oh,
did the opposite. He
Of course,
told
yeah.
the venues you
have
have
to do
to,
it,
and
yeah.
they said no. So he was like, well, then I'm pulling out.
Yep.
Well, then we have the in between. You have Joe Rogan and you have Tim Dillon. And I got into Twitter back and forth with Tim Dillon on this one.
Hot Tim on Tim action. I watched a little
Yeah.
bit of that.
So Tim Dillon on his podcast, his latest episode is him being critical of the federal vaccine mandates.
Okay.
He even criticized it on Twitter, but then said, I'm not going to cancel my shows at these events simply because I disagree. I wouldn't cancel my shows in Texas over the abortion bill passing. To me, that's an excuse. Joe Rogan is going to be performing at Madison Square Garden. He's already sold 13,000 tickets.
Mm-hmm.
He booked that before the vaccine mandate. Now he's offering refunds. I don't know the circumstances for Joe. Maybe he's got a very serious and massive contract and there's a serious liability for him bailing and canceling on the show. So offering refunds is probably a good thing. But I'll still say, based on the information I have, I don't understand why Joe wouldn't cancel that. If he's going to come out and say the vaccine mandates are bad, if he's going to, go to the doctor and get prescribed these, alternative treatments or whatever and not be vaccinated, wouldn't you then say, I will not support the system that is forcing regular people to get the vaccine?
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if in New York City, the vaccine mandate, there's an exemption for performers.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a celebrity,
Yep.
you don't got to get vaccinated. Okay, if you're a low-level guitar player playing at a bar, you also don't got to get vaccinated. So, I saw Tim Dillon tweeting about this, saying that like, he called his fans brain dead. He said, for my more brain dead fans, I'm not the one mandating anything. It's the venues and the ticket salespeople and the governors. Blame them. And I'm just like, First of all, like, why you're calling people brain dead for saying, I mean, I get it. Maybe that's his style or whatever, but I'm like, he's already made this thing he's already coming at people because they were tweeting at him saying like, yo, why are you playing these venues? Let's be real. In New York City with the mandate, you can drive a half an hour upstate, find a better venue with no mandate. You can cross the river and find a venue with no mandate. If you want to perform in these places, you're choosing to do so. So it sounds to me like he's just making excuses for wanting to perform at bigger venues that make him good money. And that's fine. But then I just see a guy who's going to come out and take the position of, vaccine mandates are bad. Why? Yeah. Well, he got ratioed. I think his fans stepped in and then the ratio went back and forth. But you've got people saying like he's being called a sellout now. Whatever, call him whatever you want to call him. I just think that if I were to go on a show like this one and be like, vaccine mandates are bad, you would not catch me dead putting on an event with a vaccine mandate. Just like, even if I didn't believe it, why would I ever subject myself to? No, but the reality is we're not going to do it. We are putting on an event. The tentative date is October, late October. October 22nd is our October 23rd, sorry. And then no vaccine mandates. It's going to be in West Virginia, open, no masks, whatever, because I wouldn't do it otherwise. But I look at some of these people, and it kind of bums me out that Jim Brewer is, I don't think he's probably wealthy. I mean, he was an SNL, he's a famous guy. Half-baked, yeah, for sure. He's a funny guy, too.
He's great, man.
So he's probably wealthy to a certain degree. I'm not going to pretend like he's the 1%. Joe Rogan's estimated net worth is in the tens or hundreds of millions or whatever. But how much is enough that you're going to be like, you know what? I don't need to make another 10 grand performing at this venue that's going to subject my fans who are upset about this.
Well, at this stage with hyperinflation, you could never maybe possibly a sandwich could cost $100,000. So
but come on,
it comes to community. I mean, this is legit social currency is where we're going.
Sure, Ian, you get paid 10 grand, you put it in crypto, you put it in property, you don't lose the value because of hyperinflation.
If the banks knock your bank account out, you lose it.
And the property is there with your name on the deed.
No amount of money is going to ever be enough. That's the point. It's people. You need people. You need society. You need culture and friendship.
I understand that for some people, no amount of money is enough, and that's what I can't understand. Because I got to tell you,
enough to survive, like $30,000 a year.
I think the 10 years ago it was considered $77K. So look at inflation. I'd say you'd have to double it at this point. Maybe 125. In New York, it's like $200K a year. But I just don't get it. Look,
$200K a year. Sorry, that's for what specifically?
Like to be considered perfectly middle class. You get vacation, you have clothes, you go to the dentist, you have healthcare. I just can't understand.
It's as high as $200K just to be considered middle class
in New York City. Yeah, so in New York City 10 years ago, it was $150,000 per year to be considered middle class.
That's okay. I didn't know it was that high.
For the rest of the country, it was 77. So it fluctuates with cost of living. Here's what I don't get. And it could be very simply that Joe Rogan has a contract with Madison Square Garden that is probably massive. We're not talking about a little rinky-dink club here. He could be on the hook if he severs the contract for like millions of dollars or whatever. But I'm just wondering, like, when you do a $100 million deal with Spotify and you were already making tens of millions of dollars, he's not going to get more. I mean, he can get more rich, but like, what do you do with the money? And he's not going to get more famous. So at a certain point, couldn't you just be like, I mean, actually, I'll tell you this. On Lex Friedman's podcast, Joe Rogan said he had FU money. And that he just buys sports cars because, well, if you got the money and, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be, okay, well, then stand up for your principles, say no to the vaccine mandate, and tell Madison Square Garden you change the terms of the contract by mandating this, I won't perform. What does he need from them? It bums me out.
I don't know, man. I mean, I feel like anything I would say on that would be speculation. We've both been on Joe's show multiple times. We've met him. Most people haven't. And I don't know. I mean, I know what I would do in that situation with the information that I know. As you alluded to, there could be something in there in a contract which is really putting him between a rock and a hard place. I don't know. So I'm kind of hesitant to speculate on that. I do think, though, that in terms of the general wider principle, then I do actually think it's extraordinarily important for high-level musicians, comedians, performers, and so on to to boycott this. If they do, look, some people don't.
Just real quick,
go ahead.
I want to say the same thing for Tim Dillon, too. Yeah. Like, he booked his tour. He may be like, I can't pull out of these contracts. Yeah. So, with respect, that could be the circumstance he's dealing.
I mean, I know artists who are on, a much, much smaller level who have canceled entire tours because of this. So, again, I don't know all of the details. And these are guys who, need the money far more than someone who's already worth $100 million plus. And they've pulled out on principle and said, you know what? I'm not going to perform at any event. I announced that back in April or so, before there was even so much talk, let alone implementation of these vaccine passports. I said, look, I'm not going to perform at any venue where people cannot enter unless they show their papers proving that. I was like, it's never been like that before. I don't want it to be like that in the future. I'm not the biggest artist in the world. Like, I'm not going to crush the music industry by me doing that. But that's my line. I think that's my line. I'm not comfortable with
tying it with what you were saying earlier about how we're individual, but we're also herd animals. Yes. This is the point. When one very famous person makes that call and decides, I'm not playing, people follow. That is how we're coded.
They do. And look, most people are against the mandate.
Well, if you go to CNN, they say 51% are in favor.
Nonsense. Most people are against the mandate.
I think so too.
Most people are against the mandate, whether people have had the shot. I know there's people who are super pro-vax who literally think almost everyone should get it, but they're like, but no, it shouldn't be mandated.
Yeah, because the mandate backfired.
Yeah, but not just that. It's just fundamentally, look, if the government can force you to inject something, even if you believe that thing is good for you, right? The government shouldn't be able to, vitamins are good for you. The government shouldn't be able to force you to inject vitamins. Exercise is good for you. I'm a huge proponent of exercise. I'm a huge proponent of healthy eating. The government should not be able to force you to go to the gym or to lift weights or to go for a run. So you can be very much in favor of something, yet totally opposed to it being mandated on a state level or even on a massive corporate level.
Look at the people who supported Michael Bloomberg, voted for him in New York. This is a guy who says tax the poor. You ever hear a speech on this? He's like speaking at an event.
I don't think I heard this
in New York, and he's like, you got to tax the poor because they're not smart enough to buy the things they need. So if we take their money from them, we can give them what they need. Wow. So he did the drink tax.
Okay.
He tried to do the drink tax. I don't know if he pulled it off, but he was like, large sodas will be taxed at a higher rate.
Okay, yeah.
Trying to deter poor people. This is what they do. They do punitive taxes. We'll just tax the cigarettes, make it harder for them to get them because they're bad for you. Government shouldn't have anything to do with that. I will say, there's a line. Schools and certain public facilities, institutions do require vaccination, like your standard, MMR, polio.
I think that's unique to the USA, by the way.
Really?
Maybe not totally unique. I don't think that's the case. In much of Europe. There's
that argument where, Chris Wallace of Fox was like ragging on the governor of Nebraska. I was like, well, what about all these other vaccines? I'll just say really simply, yes, over years of research with long-term studies, we sat down and had a legislative body determine that we should have certain requirements for vaccines that are readily available and considered safe. And well, there you go. Yeah. That's very different from an emergency use authorization edict coming from a governor who didn't pass the law through no conversation, no debate. There should be an opportunity for hearings. There should be an opportunity for representation. I'm not going to sit back as Joe Biden circumvents the two other branches.
There's something really interesting that you perhaps inadvertently highlighted there, which is the concept of precedent. And that's the worst thing that's come out of the past 18 months is the precedents that have been set, right? So I don't think that, so even if there are other, it sounds like here in the US, there are other vaccine mandates for people to go to certain schools or I think to be in the military. Like, I actually oppose that, right? So just because they've made that decision in the past and set that precedent, to me, that doesn't mean, okay, that this one's okay. I'm like, well, right. I don't think that's right either. And what's happened now is precedents have been set for lockdowns. Precedent have been set for stay-at-home orders, for forced closures of businesses, for forcing people. I mean, bro, I grew up in Saudi Arabia. I remember just 2 years ago, what was the thing that people always, oh, that's horrible. They make women cover their faces. Right? All of a sudden, in France, in Germany, in the UK, they're debating back in 2015, 2016, should we ban the burqa? Should we ban the Islamic face veils, whatever? Now you're mandating the burqa and you're just calling it science.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat. and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.